Residency. Could you give us a roll call, please?
Madam Chairwoman Claudia Halpin.
Present.
Clerk Renee Brooks Amazori.
Present.
Commissioner Mercedes Betty Bernal.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The basis for this hearing this morning is to determine if the challenged voter, Oscar O. Vargas, is an eligible voter pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 17-9.28. Is Mr. Vargas here this morning in attendance?
He is present, represented by Counsel Alberto Aponte Cardona.
I'm sorry. Can I come in again?
Alberto Aponte Cardona and Ms. Dawn Huntley, H-U-N-T-L-E.
If Mr. Vargas could come up. Ms. Huntley, provide your name and information to Council, are there any matters prior to Mr. Vargas being sworn in that you'd like to address the board?
Yes, there is. They'd like to address a specific issue, and it pains me to do this. But the last time this board convened, one of the members made what was deemed a disclosure, which, in my opinion, it was disingenuous at best. The statement was that this council commissioner knew both Mr. Vargas as well as Miss Matos. What the commissioner failed to say, well, she said that she knew them from several community endeavors. What the commissioner failed to say was that she had personally contributed twice to Miss Matos' campaign. She had personally worked on Miss Matos' campaign, and she is a close personal friend of Miss Matos. So what we're asking today is that this board recuse, or Ms. Bernal will recuse herself based on those specific facts. Then we would be able to proceed forward. We'll be filing an ethics complaint with the City of Providence later this afternoon.
From my perspective, I mean, I think Ms. Bernal would like to address that, but it's my understanding that this board will only be taking evidence and not voting on the eligibility today. That will give Mr. Vargas' counsel to file the appropriate documents, and Ms. Bernal can reach out to the municipal integrity officer prior to the board meeting again on the determination. It's this board's preference how you want to proceed, but I mean, Ms. Bernal can address the claim from counsel.
The disclosure I made in the past meeting was to clarify my relationship with both of the individuals involved in this case. Although it's true, the way that Mr. Aponte said that I was participating in the campaign of Ms. Vargas and I contributed, but as I stated in that, this doesn't impair me to make a decision according to the laws in which I'm abide as a commissioner of the board of canvassers. But I don't think that precludes me to listen to the hearing today, and if I need to make a decision prior to the board, I will do it in the time that decision should be made.
One of the things that we will be challenging here is the intent of this file, what's behind it. And her intent is clear. Ms. Matos cannot run on the record, so she's going to do anything possible to remove any competition. So what we may have to call, because we believe it was her intent to defraud this board and the people of that board, we may intend to call Mr. Bernal later on in any proceedings that we may feel either an appeal or a civil matter in this case. Based on that, again, we would ask that she remove herself from these proceedings as well as recuse herself.
I think she has to make a determination of the recusal. I mean, I don't know if there's a conflict or not. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, counsel has laid out these allegations. I think it's premature in that no one from the city, the municipal integrity officer, or the state, counsel said he's filing with the city ethics commission. So it may be premature, but
So it is up to Commissioner Bernal.
I don't know the facts and circumstances, other what my brother as well as Ms. Bennell have stated on the record.
So it would be up to you to introduce yourself.
Well, I stated very
I'm
clearly.
sorry.
I stated very clearly that I don't feel that it would be my personal relationship will not impair me to make the right decision based on the evidence that we gathered and based on what is stated by the law. That was, but
I suggest we proceed until we receive a determination from the municipal integrity officer. Council, you said the city of Providence should be filed.
Yeah, we intend to file it today. Based on the website, the address given for the Providence Ethics Board is this building. So we intended to file this morning here and then proceed forward. We do have copies of the complaint we intend to file. And let me be clear, I have nothing but admiration and respect for Ms. Bernal. I do. I know her personally. I consider her a dear friend. But I have a client who would be adversely affected if she were allowed to even participate in these proceedings. Specifically, I think she made a disclosure, but that disclosure was incomplete. You were here, I was not. And you members of this board remember what she said. Her statement was several community endeavors, and she wasn't pressed on that. But I don't believe that working on someone's campaign can be considered a community endeavor. I don't believe that she disclosed her contributions to Miss Matos' campaign, who was the person who filed this petition. I don't believe that her close personal friendship was clearly outlined to this committee when she made that disclosure. So based on that, again, it's clear she has a personal vested interest in this because it's her friend who's making this complaint against my client. So again, committee can choose to do what it does. I just want to note on the record that we would be objecting for her not to recuse herself, and that would be a basis for an appeal. Thank you.
We can proceed. We can proceed. Okay, Commissioner Omisori, could you please administer the oath to Mr. Vargas?
Mr. Oscar Vargas, please come forward. Okay, please raise your right hand as you take the oath. You do solemnly swear or affirm that you will fully and truly answer all questions put to you regarding the place of residence and eligibility as an elector? Yes.
Mr. Vargas, I will be asking you a series of questions that are listed in the statute 17-9.128. First question, when did you last come into the district?
More than 20 years.
Did you come for temporary purpose only or for the purpose of making it your residence?
Could we just clarify for the record, the district encompassing Ward 15
Ward 15.
in the city of Providence,
Yes.
just to be clear.
Ward 15, City of Providence. Did you come here for a temporary purpose only or for the purpose of making it your residence?
President.
Okay. Have you now and have you had for the last 30 days a voting residence in Ward 15? If so, what is the particular description, name, and location of your residence?
150 Dora Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 299.
And you have resided here the last 30 days?
Correct.
What is the address furnished to the Division of Motor Vehicles for which you're operating licenses?
150 Dora Street.
What is the address for which your motor vehicle is registered?
150 Dora Street.
What is the address from which you filed your last federal income tax return?
The last address, 150 Dora Street.
What is the address from which you filed your last state income tax return?
150 Dora Street.
What is the address furnished to the companies from which you have obtained retail credit cards from?
150 Dora Street.
What is the address furnished to the financial institutions where you made your cards?
150 Dora Street.
What is the address furnished to the tax collector and/or assessor in those communities where you own taxable real or personal property for the purposes of notification to you?
150 Dora Street.
What is the address furnished to the insurance companies with which you maintain policies?
That's an error.
That's an error? Is that what you said?
I'm sorry.
And the insurance. Okay.
So what is the question again, what is the address furnished to the insurance companies you maintain policies with?
It's my wife's address.
And what is that address?
I live in Wally, 63 Evan Road.
63 what?
Evan Road. It's in both names.
Okay. What is the address furnished to your employer?
150 Dollar Street.
What is the address furnished to you, by you, to any business, professional, union, or fraternal organizations?
150
You are a member.
150 Dollar Street.
That concludes my questions. Are there any additional questions to the board? Are there any other additional questions by the board? Do you have additional questions?
Yeah, what is the address furnished to the governmental agencies with which you have governmental
I don't understand the
agencies?
question, ma'am.
Can we just back up for a second? And for clarity of the record, Council and Mr. Vargas, there were, as you're aware, a charge filed against your eligibility. I think at this time we should include that as part of the record, if it has not been, and I don't think it has been. I don't know if the administrator has a copy. Council, do you have a copy?
I do, but I would be objecting to anything that's beyond the 30-day requirement, or at least to the beginning of this year. There's several documents which were presented by Miss Matos, specifically a report from the Secretary of State, the Articles of Incorporation, which state that his address is clearly 150 Dorr Street. And we'd also like to introduce some evidence, specifically with respect to the questions that were just answered by this commission, which include his license, his registration on motor vehicles, his daughter's temporary learner's permit, registrations from the motor vehicles, city tax bills from the city of Providence, as well as water bills, sewer bills, and even a certificate of lead completion, lead training, which also bears the address 150 Dorr Street. Now, we would ask that these be sealed because they contain personal information of both Mr. Vargas and his daughter, who lived at that address, who was 18 years old.
So I think you want to hold up on those until we can decide. I mean, it's from my perspective, for completeness of the record, I mean, this is what was filed. I would suggest that the whole document be submitted and this board can give the proper weight relative to the information when you make your review. So and I'm referring to the complaint filed by Miss Matos several weeks ago. And I think that should be entered as an exhibit.
So this July, we have amended the date at the previous meeting because this says June 2nd, and we received it actually July 2nd, but we made that correction at the last meeting. So I'd like to enter this as Exhibit 1. For the record, it's the regulation adopted by the State Board of Elections, submitted by Councilwoman Matos. Do I have a motion to adopt
I
this?
think let's have it identified first, okay?
So,
And if the stenographer could note the identification of the document, and then if Ms. Placencia could clarify for the record, because Council and Mr. Vargas were not present, the date stamp and the inconsistency with the date stamp in your representation from the last hearing.
So the date stamp currently on this document is dated June 2nd, but in actuality, the document was provided to us, or was filed for us on July 2nd of 2018. There was a clerical error with our timestamp where the date does not change. We have to physically change it on a monthly basis on the first of the month. So we changed the day and inadvertently left the month as June. But it was filed on July 2nd.
so the document to be entered as Exhibit 1 is
I think the membership, if there's a motion or if you review it as a full exhibit.
I would ask that the board note my objection.
So,
Madam Chair, I think for the record, I'm asking that the board note his objection. I think that's the board's intent to note Mr. Ponte's objection relative to the
so
document.
your objection is so noted, Mr. Ponte. So,
You need a motion.
we need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
I see.
No motion, please.
Yes, I
So it would be entered as Exhibit 1. Okay? And we have a second motion. Motion passes. So this is Exhibit 1.
Now, if you want to go back, sorry for my interruption, Ms. Bennell, but you had some questions that I think may be relative to the filing of Exhibit 1 that you started to pose. I don't know if you want to review your document and use that based to your questions. It comes, you said you had a copy of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What is the address furnished to any governmental agency which you have any contact?
150 George Street.
Any further questions, Commissioner?
Have you ever registered to vote at any
I'm
other
sorry,
place?
have you ever what?
Registered to vote at any other place within or outside of this state?
No, ma'am.
Have you applied for an absentee ballot at any place in this or any other state?
No, ma'am.
Any further questions, Commissioner? Are there any questions?
I know.
on storage?
I do have a few questions, ladies of the board. I'm a little bit confused here on a couple of the filings. I looked at, as part of the exhibit, Form 630 for state's Form Business Corporate Annual Report. And I noticed that it seems to me that for the periods 2009 through 2017, the addresses were always 633 Irving.
If you don't mind me interrupting, I think she's referring to, for clarity for the record,
For the record.
to the complaint, which is Exhibit 1, part of the packet, the attachments. Am I correct?
That is correct.
So I would note that there's handwritten item number 3 on each one of them. And be more specific as to where she's referring to.
Attorney Bob, excuse me. If you were to look at pages throughout this, I think they're all together, let me see here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years of documents from the state of Rhode Island and Providence Board of Elections. They all say the Business Corporation Annual Report.
I would object to that question, given that the statute is clear, it needs to be within 30 days. All of those
I'm
documents-
leading up to that, okay? And I addressed that question because suddenly, on the 2018 report, the address goes to 150 Doris Street in Providence. So I wanted to know what transpired that caused that immediate change.
Again, I'm going to instruct my client to answer, but I would object as to the relevance with respect to the requirement being 30 days. That filing goes back to January 17, 2018, which would put my client well within the 30-day period.
Madam Chair, I think the line of question is relevant. Mr. Vargas testified that he's been a voter on the Doris Street address for some 20 years. I think it's inconsistent, and perhaps, maybe not, he can clarify as the different addresses, and it'll assist this board, and I think it's relevant.
You can proceed.
The address you see there, ma'am, is because my wife is a bookkeeper, and she wants to go to make sure that corporation, any corporation paper goes to her house.
I'm sorry, can you give me a little more clarity on that?
How clear do you want it?
You're saying to me that your wife, who is your bookkeeper, Okay, this was our clerical error just stating to me that the 2018 final. Okay, that this is the only year.
The question of 2018 is to make sure I got the correct paper on my one.
But in the past, and I know it's going past more than 10 years, but all the prior years, was she also the bookkeeper?
Correct.
Okay, and it was always filed from the Warwick address? And it was never looked at or reviewed?
I always be in and out of one. She's the book.
You were in and out of the country, so she was solely responsible to be the bookkeeper to complete all your filings for this date?
And I signed the file.
Are you the only officer of your corporation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I noticed that this does go back years ago. At one point, there was a second officer in your corporation.
That's correct.
Okay. And presently, are there any other officers?
No, ma'am.
And are you the only person that has the signing responsibility and all legal responsibility for your corporation?
Yes, ma'am.
And, I have another question or two on tax returns. You stated that for periods, for the period, or I guess you would say more than 20 years, you've been a resident of the city of Providence?
Correct.
And the property at 150 Dora Street, is that rental property?
No, ma'am.
So what kind of property is that?
One family.
It's a one-family house. Okay, and you say that you live at 150 Dora Street.
Correct.
Okay, but you also have a residence at the work location?
Objection, what's the house?
Noted.
No, ma'am.
So you don't, and rather you haven't had any primary residence for the period May 1 through present at the work location?
May 1 of which year? If you
May 1 of 2018.
No, ma'am.
And you have no rental income for 150 Dora Street?
No, ma'am.
Okay, can you provide tax returns to provide that information to us?
I won't release my personal income tax.
We do have, if I may address the board, David Diamato, who's the accountant, has prepared a letter which we plan to submit as evidence. It's an acknowledgement of general information of taxpayers who filed returns electronically, whereby Mr. DeMayo prepared those taxes and the taxpayer's address is clearly identified as 150 Dora Street. And again, we would ask that any of the documents that we provide be sealed because of the private and confidential information.
I understand that, lawyer content, but that's merely a transmittal of the tax return, correct?
Which is, yes.
Okay, that's transmittal. That does not indicate anywhere on this tax return that that's his residence.
It does. It does clearly indicate that this is a residence. Quote, taxpayer address, 150 Dora Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 02909. And that is for the federal tax return year 2017.
Mr. Vargas, do you have, can you submit to our board a copy or our actual deposit ticket from your banking institutions to provide information that this is your address at 150 Dora Street?
We do have banking information. We have banking records from, well, we have, just to go through what we have. We have records from,
maybe this may be a good time to submit it. The board can identify them without getting into,
right,
and then maybe she can review them.
I have no problem doing that. I would just want to.
One set of copies?
I have one set of copies which we would be willing to provide. But again, we're asking that these matters be received.
So we can use the entire packet as Exhibit 2, Council?
If Exhibit 1 is one.
Yeah.
For Mr. One for Mr. Vargas.
One A instead of.
It looks away.
A.
Responsibility.
Exhibit A.
If you could identify that for how many pages without getting into these.
Yes, no pages, so no.
Council, do you need us to take a couple minutes break to make copies for you, or?
We would like copies of what we submitted. I also have additional items here, which I can submit it as continuing part of A or submit it as respondents B.
Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry.
There are additional documents that council would like to submit. You want that to be continuing of A or B?
We could call it Exhibit B.
Okay, there's an additional 24 pages.
There are 18 pages here.
So 18 pages Exhibit A,
Marked for identification.
marked for identification.
We also asked these to be marked for recommendations, 24 pages.
24 pages Exhibit B, divided by council. So, do we need copies of those? I know that there's.
You can make copies at the end of the hearing.
Do you have any additional questions?
I do have a couple more questions. Mr. Vargas, I would believe that there will be utility meters at 150 Doris Street. Okay, so there will be related invoices going to bills. So I would like to see invoices for the period May and June and July for 150 Doris Street.
Should be that much.
Okay, and they are consistent with 2018.
Right.
When you purchased the building at 243 Webster, was that a one-unit building? Or was the building now labeled or addressed as 150 Dora? Was that on the...
It's labeled on the 243, 245 Webster Avenue. That includes 150.
But when you purchased the building at 243 Webster, was that building as it is today there?
It is, man. They haven't knocked it down.
But it was in the same condition?
Yes.
And there is a mortgage at 150 Dora Street?
That would be private information, man. No, sorry. I'm sorry. There's no mortgage.
And how many tenants or persons are right now residing at 150 Dora Street?
Yes, myself.
Just yourself?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. And my daughter.
So 2 persons there. Thank you for your questions.
You what?
There are some questions that council would like to ask if it's appropriate, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Um,
I'm not sure if they got your name for the record.
Attorney Ken Cheverini from the City Solicitor's Office, as well as Montserrat O'Toole. Just a couple of questions, Mr. Vargas. As I'm looking through the packet submitted, both A and B, specifically we'll start with A. I noticed there's a document from Citizens Bank. Do you have, it goes back to 2000, anything more current from Citizens Bank?
No, sir.
How about, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The account has been closed out.
Okay. But the active account would be in Webster Bank, is that your current account?
Right.
And how do you have that account? Is that your sole account?
Correct.
Is that a business account because it has you as trustee?
Personal.
Personal account? There's also some, are you currently employed at the Providence School Department?
No,
Where do you currently work?
I work for Save Life.
And did you submit any documentation from the state of Rhode Island as to your home address?
Should be in the back.
Okay, my apologies. I do notice some investments which are dated back to 2006. Do you have any updated annual statements from 2018? Maybe I didn't get the, my apologies.
should be in there, sir.
Okay. The documentation for 243 Webster Avenue, if you could clarify Webster Avenue in relation to Doris Street address?
Sir, 243, 245 is from walk for Bachus. Including 150.
And you pay taxes on both, and you own both, correct? And the 243, is that a business?
First floor is a business. Second, it's a research. It's a
Mixed use?
It's a mixture.
Are there tenants in the 243 on the second and third floor?
That's correct.
And the 150 Doris Street, that's a one-unit dwelling,
One family house.
and you live there by yourself?
Me and my daughter.
And the documentation provided from council is a driver's permit?
Correct.
Do you own any pets at the Doris Street location?
No.
And at night, when you go home after your day, where do you actually sleep?
150 Doris Street.
And for the record, can you explain to this board what the address in Warwick, the address on 63 Irving Road, who owns that particular property?
My wife and myself.
And do you own the property on Doris Street by yourself, or is your wife a co-owner?
By myself.
In your testimony earlier was that your wife is the bookkeeper. Is there any documentation that you have that you can furnish to the board that would show us that she's the actual bookkeeper for your company?
I do not understand the question.
Your statement earlier was that the documents were prepared for the state relative to your business by your wife. And for the record, it's Claudia, correct?
Correct.
Do you have documentation that would show that she's the bookkeeper for your company that you can provide us?
She is the one who always in the office, paying bills, running the company.
Is she an employee of the company? That's what I'm asking, I guess.
She's not. No.
And can you provide us the basis as to why the documents were sent to the Warwick address as opposed to the Dover address?
Because she's the bookkeeper and she likes to have control of any important documents from the state.
Now, your testimony a moment ago is that Claudia is your wife. Can you explain the current relationship with Claudia? Are you married to Claudia?
That, now you go into my personal.
May I have a moment?
I'm sorry, sir. Can you repeat the question?
A moment ago, you stated Claudia is your wife. And I don't know, we're asking clarity of the record because your testimony was that you live on Dover Street with your daughter and yourself. And then you said the Irving Road address in Warwick, your wife lives there. And I'm asking, are you currently married to Claudia?
Before my comment, I just want to apologize to the board. My client during this process has been inundated with accusations and calls about his personal family life. As we all know, he's new to politics. He didn't know the venomous nature of some of the politicians in this state, that his family would be brought into this, and that's why you get the acrimony from my client, so I would apologize for that.
Sir, we married but we separate.
And could I ask, how long have you been separated?
More than 8 years.
Does your separated or estranged wife live at that address in Warwick on Irving Road by herself?
With my kids.
And when you say kids, excluding your daughter, who live,
2 boys.
2 boys. And how long, if you know, how long has she lived at that Warwick address?
I don't know, sir.
Have you ever lived at that Warwick address?
No, sir.
Just a moment. Are you aware of any other mail that you currently receive at the Warwick address? And then, for the record, the Warwick address that I keep asking you about is the property on Irving Road, my apologies.
I'm not aware.
Do you have a mortgage on the property on Irving Road in Warwick?
Yes.
And is the mortgage with your estranged wife, Gloria?
Correct.
Do you have a mortgage on the Doris Street, 150 Doris Street?
No, sir.
Madam Chair? I do not have any.
I would just like to submit, based on my brother's line of questioning, there was a letter sent by this board to the 150 Doris Street, was a certified letter. This constitutes a letter from the government as well, for the city of Providence, as well as from this board, which he did receive at one hand signed for 150 Doris Street. That's that we marked.
We can admit that as exhibit C.
C.
Motion to,
I mean, at some point, there should be a motion to accept the documents that have been identified.
so a motion to admit the letter received by Mr. Vargas at 150 Doris Street from the City Board of Elections.
I made a motion.
Do we have a
I
second?
think we need a copy.
We need to have that.
So,
Is there a second?
No, it was not.
And let me go back for a second. Counsel, your motion would be that the board...
I would ask that they were marked for identification. I'd ask that they be marked as full exhibits, respondents A, B, and C.
So I think you need a motion for all three, even though, just for clarity of the record.
And again, I would note again that I'm requesting that those documents be sealed as to the general public because of the sensitive nature contained, including the information that is minor.
So we will, I mean, Madam Chair, my recommendation is that I say for now, they're sealed, subject to our review of the documents, and I mean, I looked at them briefly, but I want to be consistent without this board violating any issues with a minor child noted, so we will review it and then reserve on full decision, counsel, but as for now, in our review, we will keep the documents under seal.
Okay, yes. So, we need a motion.
Sure.
So a motion to keep those documents sealed, presented by...
Until such time as the law department provides a legal opinion relative to the full document that currently received.
I'd like the second motion. All in favor?
All in favor? Aye. Motion sealed. Does that conclude your
No,
question?
it concludes ours.
So I have a document here that I want to submit as an exhibit we received.
If you don't mind me identifying the document for the record, counsel, a document was submitted to the board prior to today's hearing. It's not dated, it's date stamped July 16th, 2018 from a Laura Goldstein and an Arthur Flanders who have signed the document. It's not an affidavit, it's not notarized, however, it does state that it's supportive. We've lived at 158 Doris Street in Providence since November of 2013, and our house is next door to 50 Dora, the home of Oscar Vargas. It has come to our attention that Mr. Vargas' residency is the home and is disputed by his opponent in the upcoming election, and it further goes on to say that he does live there based upon their representation in the letter. So,
I'd like to have a second letter so instead of calling CEE.
Okay.
This is a letter, if I can identify it, dated July 16, 2018, and it's from Ms. Claudia Velasquez, who is who can currently verify that she has known Mr. Vargas for over 10 years, and she can testify that he has lived at 150 Doris Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 02999. Her address is 713 Union Avenue in the city of Providence. And Ms. Velasquez is kind enough to include her cell phone, her phone number, and her email address.
I'm going to include the document as part of the record, and the board can give whatever weight it believes is appropriate. Right, and this document is not notarized. It's signed. It's not. But I think you can include it in the packet, but give it the weight that this board, make a determination you deem is appropriate.
So, a motion to admit these for the record?
To make a motion to check out these documents for the record, noted they are not notarized, and the voters are not here today.
Second?
All in favor? These will be entered as a snippet, or this part of the
It's D, correct?
D.
Madam Chair, may I ask one question?
Yes.
Mr. Vargas, I have another question for you. You state that you live at 150 Doris Street and that you do have children living at the Warwick address?
They live with my wife.
They live with your wife, okay. So the emergency contact for yourself would be referencing what address for yourself?
150 Doris Street.
And it has always been at the 150 Doris Street? Okay, and the children are younger than 18. And the children
Minors.
are minors?
Living with my wife.
The two children at the Irving Road address, are they minors? Under the
Yes,
age?
they
Okay.
minors.
And the emergency contact for you that the school's not listed is the 150 Doris Street?
Right.
And it has always been the 150 Doris Street?
All right.
Are there any other documents to be presented?
No, but I have several witnesses here. I don't know if you want just an affirmation of what they would be testifying to, or if this board would want to hear from them directly.
Council, roughly, just for the redundancy, how many witnesses do you
I
have?
have Mr. Moises Aramonte, who's present. I have Luis Lopez, Christian Orellana, and Aníbal Paz, all present in the courtroom. All would testify before this board, uncontroverted, that they have known Mr. Vargas for quite some time. Not only is he an upstanding member of the community, but he also has been a domiciled inhabitant and resident of the 150 Doris Street address for more than 20 years.
Council, just, do any of them live in the particular ward that's in question here, Ward 15?
They do, and in fact, one of the gentlemen has a business located in that area. They all would testify that they've been to his home at 150 Dora, and they have personal knowledge that he in fact lived there.
Madam Chair, if this board feels that that may assist you, there's no requirement in the statute that allows for it, or there's nothing that prevents it, but if this assists this board in your endeavor to determine if in fact the gentleman does live at the 150 Doris Street address, then I think you open it up. It's perfectly in your purview to review them and question them.
Because of the redundancy, as you stated, Council, maybe we could hear from just a couple of them. Is that sufficient, or?
I mean, I think let's start off with one, and
Okay.
if the board feels it's appropriate to go to the next level.
Okay, sure.
I would call Mr. Moises Agramonte.
Could you spell the name of it? You're going to have it? Okay.
Madam Chair, would you like the gentleman to stand or sit?
You can have a seat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could we put a chair behind this table? Exactly. Thank you.
Good morning. Could you please raise your right hand and state your name?
Moses Agramonte.
Okay, could you spell your first name and last name?
Moises. Moses.
M-O-S.
Moises Agramonte, Agramonte.
Commissioner Osar, would you administer the oath, please?
Please raise your right hand as you take the oath. You do voluntarily swear or affirm that you will fully and truly answer all questions put to you regarding your place of residence and eligibility as an elector as referred to this matter.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. This is an affirmation. So you can raise your right hand and give me the oath again. You do voluntarily swear or affirm that you will fully and truly answer all questions put to you regarding your place of residence and eligibility as an elector in this matter regarding Mr. Oscar Vargas today.
Okay, the couple questions that I have for you, and the last name again was
Agramonte.
Mr. Agramonte. So you live in Ward 15 next, in the same ward Mr. Vargas lives in, or you just know him as an acquaintance?
No, I live on 74 Bennett Avenue, Cranston.
I'm sorry. Can you keep your voice up because I'm a
Oh,
little
yeah.
hot?
I live on 74 Bennett Avenue, Cranston.
In Cranston.
Cranston, yeah.
But you can attest to us today and verify.
Yeah, because I have business in Providence for the last 12 years. And I testified for
And you have been to his home, or you just know that he
I
lives?
live in his home a couple of
Yeah,
times.
okay. And the address of that home that you've been at?
150 Dodge Street.
Commissioner Bernal, do you have any questions?
Where is your business located in Providence?
Right now it's on 243 Webster Avenue, Providence, 02020.
So you are a tenant of Mr. Vargas.
Any other questions from you, Commissioner Osar? Do you have any?
Mr. Agramonte, do you pay your own utilities at the 243 Webster Avenue business, or does Mr. Vargas pay all the utilities or associated with your business?
I pay that electric.
Any other questions, council?
So, I'm sorry, where did you say in Cranston you live?
I live in Cranston.
No, I know whereabouts.
And
I didn't hear you.
Excuse me?
What, the address in Cranston?
74 Bennett Avenue, Cranston, 02920.
So you are not a resident of Providence, but you have a relationship with Mr. Vargas.
I have a business in Providence.
How long have you had a business relationship with Mr. Vargas at the Webster Avenue location?
The Webster for almost 11 years.
11 years?
Correct.
Are you a personal friend of Mr. Vargas?
Yeah.
How long have you been a personal friend of Mr. Vargas?
I know him from 2005, before I ran the barber shop.
And your business is a barber shop
Correct.
at the address?
242 Webster Avenue.
And typically, what are the hours of your business at the address?
I started between 8:30 and 9 to 9 o'clock, 8:30.
Have you had occasion to actually been in the unit at 150 Dora Street with Mr. Vargas?
Correct.
And you know him outside of your work as a barber at the address? You know him personally?
Yeah.
Has Mr. Vargas ever assisted you in your business financially?
Excuse me, can you say assistant financially? I don't understand that question.
I'm sorry, and when you make your payments to Mr. Vargas relative rent or whatever else associated with, where do you provide those payments for the business? What address are you providing the payments? Where?
His house. I go to his house.
And can you, for the record, which house, what do you
Oh,
mean? The address?
Dora Street.
provided any campaign donations to Mr. Vargas' campaign?
Any?
Campaign donations to Mr. Vargas' campaign?
I'm going to object to this development.
No further questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm going to object to this, any statements made by the gallery.
For the record, I think maybe she can identify herself for the record, and she's asking you with...
Yes, identify yourself.
Sabina Matos, 55 Lancaster Avenue. I'm just a little concerned with the witness. I fully understand that it's on the law. I don't know if you understood that in Spanish well. If someone can tell him in Spanish that he's on the law, because I'm very concerned that he's not fully aware of it. I don't want him to.
The assumption is that my client or the witness is perjuring himself here. And again, I would ask that any statements made by the councilwoman be stricken from the record. If she wants to testify, she can take the stand.
In abundance of caution, I would ask the gentleman that, are you aware that you're under oath providing testimony today, sir? And you understand that you have to be truthful and honest? I don't know if this board is satisfied. I'm satisfied.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have no further questions.
May I ask a couple of questions? Can I inquire?
I would ask through the chair.
Can I inquire to the witness?
Yes.
Mr. Agramonte, so you testified that you're at your business between 8 and 9 to 9 o'clock, correct? And is that 5 days a week? 6 days a week. So it's fair to say you're around the area at least 11 hours a day, correct? And during those course of 11 hours, do you generally see Mr. Vargas in the neighborhood, in the area? And you testify that you've been to his home, correct? And in fact, you testified that when you pay him the rent, you do it at his home, correct? And that was at 150 Doris Street, correct? And so you do understand that you're under oath, correct? And that you're required to tell the truth, yeah, correct? And have you done so today, even though you were accused by the sitting councilwoman that you don't understand the oath?
I will clarify for the record. I don't think there was an accusation made. There was a...
And it's inference. There was an inference made.
That was her statement.
There was an inference made that you didn't understand what an oath is, correct? And you do understand that?
Correct.
Nothing further.
No further questions. Thank you for your testimony.
Council, just to inquire, as an offer of proof, would the testimony from the other 4 or so individuals be fairly similar?
If I may just have one second. The only difference with this, the next witness would be Mr. Cristiano Orellana. He would be that he actually, in fact, does live in the neighborhood and has had the rest of the testimony, other than the business relationship, would be that he sees Mr. Vargas on a regular basis in the neighborhood. He has been to his home on numerous occasions, and that he knows him going back a significant amount of time.
Council, could you roughly, I mean, I'm familiar with Dora and Lester. Does he live in a stone's throw of Mr. Vargas's, or is it,
I can ask him to put his address on the record.
Yeah, so that may help us.
I live in 185 Sterling Avenue.
185 what?
Sterling Avenue, about 3 blocks from, 4 blocks from North Street. I'm sorry.
You're going forward.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to give you the oath for you this morning. Please raise your right hand as you take the oath. May I have your name again, please?
Christian Oriana.
Can you spell your last name?
Orellana.
And your first name is C?
Christin.
Thank you.
Mr. Orellana, have a seat, please.
Sure, thank you.
You do solemnly swear or affirm that you, please raise your right hand. You do voluntarily swear or affirm that you will fully and truly answer all questions put to you today regarding the residence and eligibility as an auditor of Mr. Oscar O. Vargas. You do understand that you need to be truthful with all questions and comments provided to you or asked by you today.
I understand.
And you do understand.
Yes, I understand.
So, Mr. Orellana,
You say you live on Sterling Avenue, which is in the same...
And the same district, yeah.
And how do you...
Madam Chair, if you could, for the record, provide your address. I know you provided, but you weren't able, if you could do it again.
185 Sterling Avenue, Providence, Rhode Island, 2909.
Okay, thank you. So Sterling Avenue is in the 15th ward, you live in the
Yeah, the same area.
neighborhood. How long have you lived there?
2 years.
2 years. And you personally know Mr. Vargas?
Yes,
He's
I
a
do.
friend, a business acquaintance?
Well, he's a friend. I have been there for, I home a couple times.
And have you been to his home in that district?
Yeah, the 150 Dollar Street.
Yes.
Yes.
Any questions?
Mr. O'Meara, does Mr. Vargas or have you in the past afforded you any financial responsibility or financial assistance in any matter?
No.
And you have no business relationship with him?
No.
Or any members of his family?
No.
Now, you say you've been to his home a couple of times. Have you ever been there on the weekend?
Oh, yeah.
And you've seen other family members of Mr. Vargas at the home at the time?
Not really. I don't know anything about his personal life. I just know him.
So you've just seen him during the day, maybe a couple of times
Yeah.
driving by or something, on a weekend or something?
On weekend, yeah.
Have you ever seen a car belonging to Mr. Vargas at his residence on Doris Street?
No, to be honest, I don't know. how I said, I know him, but I don't know anything about his personal life, about his cars or anything.
But you know him for a couple of years.
Yeah, I did know him for a couple of years.
As an acquaintance?
Well, I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Would you say you're a close friend or?
No, like we call friends everybody, but like not like close.
Thank you.
All right.
Commissioner Bernal, do you have any questions for Mr. O'Meara?
Have you been contributing to Mr. Vargas' campaign
What do you mean?
financially?
No.
In a way, are you working with his campaign or helping him?
Well, if he asked me, I'm more than happy to do it.
Council, do you have any questions?
Just a couple questions. On those occasions that you were at the 150 Doris Street, how late in the evening were you there?
11 o'clock, midnight.
And on those occasions, do you know when you left if Mr. Vargas did sleep at that residence?
Supposedly, yeah, yes.
Has Mr. Vargas ever been to your home on Sterling Avenue?
Yeah, a couple times.
Have you heard some of the testimony earlier that Mr. Vargas owns a property in Warwick on 63 Irving Road? Have you ever been to that?
No, because that's something, I think that's something personal to him, so I guess we don't talk about that.
And you said you've known him for a few years?
Yeah,
Since you moved into the neighborhood?
since I moved to the neighborhood, yeah, 2 years ago.
Are you currently employed, sir?
Yeah,
Where do you currently work?
220 Meeting Street. It's a cafe, Meeting Street Cafe.
And do you know, are you friendly with Mr. Vargas' estranged wife, Claudia?
I just see him a couple of times, but
And when you saw her at the Providence, the Doris Street address?
no, because sometimes we, how do you say that? Sometimes I can't go with my English, I'm sorry.
You can say it in Spanish.
But
So,
you won't be able to.
Again, because there's no translator here, Spanish is my first and primary language. Gentlemen, you made a statement in Spanish, Mr. Bernal was willing to translate that. I can affirm or deny the accuracy of that statement.
If that's easier, I mean.
like how I said, friends says that they're Mr. Vargas' wife, but I don't know personally.
Any further testimony? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
And again, in order to avoid redundancy and waste this board's time, we do have two other witnesses whose names I placed on the record who will be willing to testify similar to the two witnesses that testified earlier.
Thank you, Councilman. I mean, I don't believe I don't think there's any need. We've heard from two individuals, unless this board feels that there's additional testimony required to assist you in making the decision.
I don't think so. Have they put anything in writing?
No, they have not, but if this board was so inclined, I can get them to sign affidavits to that effect.
That'd be fine if we could do that.
I think the council would like to do it if we're not, I don't believe today, as I mentioned earlier, that this board is rendering a decision. The board will review the transcript and the documentation provided I think if in fact council would like to supplement the record, there should be a closed period of time by which he should do that. But until the board gets the transcript, my understanding is the board will review the documents as well as the transcript and convene another meeting to render their decision.
Does that conclude the testimony today?
Someone's standing up, I don't know if
Any other testimony today? So that concludes the testimony today. We can make a motion to adjourn, and the board will make a decision shortly after we review the transcripts and the testimony.
the board will notice all interested parties, council.
Absolutely.
If we don't have it, if you could provide a document, a card to the administrator so we can notice you, as well as the Mr. Vargas and the full council and the challenger.
Motion to adjourn?
Please remember, I apologize, if any additional documents are presented by anyone else other than my client, I would ask that those be forwarded to us for our review and response as well.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll talk to council secretary.
Meeting is adjourned.